Louis Guidetti, master of Greek mythology and cousin of Adidas, in fact, a Greek goddess. Here, once again, to explain to you, Peasants, how we go about doing a barge drawing. This is a very simple barge drawing, a good introductory one for those of you beginner morons who don't know the ropes, going about how to draw. Got everything covered for you here. First things first, we want to be using something that we can work straight up and down, right? So that we aren't angling the paper and making it harder for us to see and examine and compare the angles. We want something just straight up and down, mounted, as we can see right here, and in this camera we can tell that the paper, we have it side by side, and then I have the paper flush up to this piece of paper right here. And this is very important because otherwise, if this paper's off or over a little bit, it might affect how we draw this face over onto this. So we just want to get as many annoyances out of the way from the very start. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to mark the bottom point and the top point. And the goal here is, of course, to copy this directly over here. We do want to understand what we're drawing, not just simply copying the lines, but we want to get the construction method. So the first things first, we're going to go straight across like this and just mark 1, 2, 1, 2. Where's the bottom point? And then do the same thing for the top. And then what we do, we're looking here and we're comparing. And I like tapping my pencil quite a bit back and forth and just getting these marks and trying to see these distances. And then we're going to go from here to the nose, and we're going to try to go straight across. So horizontally across, we're just trying to keep it very simple. Then we want to visualize a point from here to here. Now, what is this doing? What is this doing? It is training our eyes to see exact distances and measurements. We are using the sight size method. I strongly recommend using comparative measurements when you do sight size. However, when you first start doing sight size, it might be hard to juggle both because you're trying to learn something new and all your attention is going towards that. But the goal here is to teach our brains to see exact distances, exact angles. That is a very important ability to have. And then in addition, later on, throwing comparative measurement and comparing one point to the other point to get the overall proportions is huge. If you can learn these two things, sight size, comparative measurements, you're doing well. So we have this point here to this point, and I'm just going to draw one straight line. So this is teaching us angles and relationships of points, and it's also teaching us how to relate the entire shape at once, because already we're looking at this entire piece, okay? And then from here, we double check this. I'm also going to give you a time frame for beginners because this is a video. Obviously, I can't have this go on forever. But so I'm going to speed this up some, and I've been doing this a little bit longer. So if you're a beginner, you want to take more time. So say at this stage right here, give it at least 5 minutes of really trying to get this shape. I know that seems extreme, but the idea is to slow ourselves down some. So now I'm comparing this point up to here, and I'm using different measurements. See, when we create angles, angles create points, clear points that we can measure off of. So I'm using this point to measure to here, and this point to measure to here, assuming these are correct. So we're relating everything together, right? And then from here, we can break it down and say, what angle is this nose? A lot of people might go up, a lot of people might go down because they're idiots, but I go straight across here because that is exactly what it is, bitches. Right, so from here, we're just gonna mark that piece in. And I am using a 2B pencil right here on Bristol paper, and let me darken these lines so that y'all can see it in the camera. Y'all want to be doing, that was a little bit thick, but you want to be doing firm lines that you can see when you squint to be able to simplify them, all right? But you don't want to scar the paper. From here, I'm going to go up and I'm going to get where the bridge of the nose kind of comes in right there, which is this point. I'm just going to roughly mark it, and I'm also looking straight across like this, okay? Straight across, but I'm thinking of this distance here to here, and it just comes in maybe just a little bit. All right, and then from this point up to here, that seems about correct. And these are all very subtle angles in between. Okay, So from this point, I'm also, here's another big thing. We want to, I'm kind of standing off to the side a little bit because I don't want to block the camera. I think I could move in just a little bit, but essentially my eye level, essentially you want the eye level to be right here. Mine's about right here, which this is a little bit low. And that might cause a little bit of perspective work, but ideally you set it up eye level. You don't want to be looking down or up at it. And also you want your nose right in between the two. So it's 1, 2. That's how we're working, right? All right, so I'm going to shift over just a little bit so that the perspective is not off. And at this point, I'm going to try to speed it up a little bit for y'all's sake so you don't get bored with this, but hopefully you can get as much out of it. So we're just double checking these lines here. And notice I am drawing with straight lines. I see the curves. I see the curves. But at this point, I just want to train myself to see these basic lines, right? From this point here, let's mark where I think the edge of the nose is going to be, something like that. And then we're going to get this piece. So I just marked this, and then we're going to get this, right? And where does it break? So I always follow through with my angles, right? Follow through. So follow through here. You see, if you follow through here, it cuts through this point. You see that? Cuts through there. And then what we do, we clean it up. We'll clean it up some. I have a gummy eraser. I'm going to press it in, right? And I am just going to very lightly shape this. And here is a very interesting, very fascinating choice what we have right here. Look at this, because we can either cut it up here, which will make it look too thin, or we can cut it here, which I'm going to cut it at the very top, thicken that nose just a little bit, right? And this might need to bump up a little bit, but we will cover that in a second. Right? Patience, patience, patience. Notice how I sharpen my pencil, nice and long. Definitely has no use. It just looks cool and makes me feel better about myself. Edit that out in editing. I do not need to compensate. I am totally sane and confident in my abilities. I do not need to prove myself to anybody, especially myself or my mom, with a sharp pencil. Sharp pencil. There we go. So we're just shaping this as we go right here. Shaping it, and we're just getting the basic angles here. So a quick note, these small angles, they're very important to get, obviously, but we can't get them unless we have the big shapes correct, okay? So like I said, in this first stage, you keep it about 10 minutes or so, or 5 minutes. I think I said 5 minutes. This next stage, if you're a beginner, this hatching out, I'm going a little bit quick. Take your time if you're a beginner. The goal is not to have a drawing that you can put on your fridge and show your friends and then post it all over Instagram and be happy and say, look what I did, it's so cool. It's to root out your weaknesses and to teach you the developmental process of exactly how we go about doing a drawing and to train your eye, your mind, right, to see these shapes using the right technique, to see the angles. That's what it's about. So use it as a freaking battle arena to train your mind and your eye to see these proportions. It's very important. Treat it as an exercise. So take your time with it. This stage right here, if you're a beginner, give yourself at least an hour, basic blocking, and only start at this stage, this hatching out stage, after you get those two big lines correct. And we're not going for every single little detail here yet, not yet, okay? We're not doing that yet. And these lines, we're going to be correcting some as well. All right, so I'm getting these points in here, okay? Just marking them in. These basic points in. And at this point, I can, in fact, come in here and use these points to judge off to get these points here. So I'm going to look 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not going to worry about all this stuff in between, okay? So let's go 1, 2, 3. And then to see this shape, it helps to see this shape right here. So we're going to be looking at the light shape as well. So we're going to be coming from this point down to here, but I'm looking at this whole shape. okay? And this is important, not just in obtaining this, but this is a very good portrait lesson as well, if you want to go about getting this. And let me say too, you probably, even at the very blocking stage, like the first 1, 2, you could probably go and start hatching these points in. You could do that as well. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, for example, here to here, like if we had this line back, I'm just going to do this really quick, okay? If we had that line, you could probably say, okay, from here to here, go 1, 2. That's also very viable. You can do that. There's nothing wrong with doing that as long as you just keep it very basic and simple, right? Like your face. At this point right here, we're just going to block this in. And when I'm adding these shapes, I'm also thinking that I need to be correcting these shapes, right? I put them in, but I'm always correcting. If you guys watch my streams when I paint, I constantly put these brush strokes down and everybody else is like, oh my gosh, it's so perfect, you're so good, you have a nice ass. I'm like, I know, but look, I really need to spend time on these lines because they're not quite accurate. You know, I know you guys can't see it, but it's the truth. It's not quite there yet. All right, so let me show you something that I did here that's, I definitely did on purpose. I definitely did not make a mistake with this. All right, so essentially, if this is here and if this is here, and then this part right here, if you notice over here, this lip goes in some. All right, because if I plumb line up, straight up and down here, it goes further over this way over here. Okay, so in other words, this piece right here needs to come over. So I'm going to lightly, just 1, 2, bring that in, knife edge, pancake, and then we're just going to cut this. 1, 2, okay? And then from here, I'm going to redraw that because that was very poorly drawn. So this cuts in, and I'm also looking at what we call the negative space, which is this space as well. You can use this space as well. See this as an abstract shape, and that will also help you to get the profile. This is especially good in profiles. This is a very good practice drawing. I know it's a very basic, simple drawing to start out with, but this stuff is very good just in general for learning portraiture because it essentially simplifies some standard techniques that you can use to get the proportions. Perfect intonation once a freaking again. Okay. So I'm just very lightly putting these marks in. 1, 2. Let's bring that out some. So I'm just seeing these angles, these basic angles. Now, quick note, again, we cannot get these basic angles. They will not be correct if the overall shape is not correct, if the big angles aren't correct. And you have to learn to see the big angles before you see the small angles. It's just how it goes. If you can't get big angles, what makes you think you can get the small angles? Idiot. You can't. All right, so from this point right here, you see all this information, and I'm going to actually squint down and just lightly kind of fuzz that part in, and then from here, I'm going to see this point here to 1, 2, and then I'm going to look at this and say 1, 2, okay? And I'm going to try to see a line just going through here and get this angle. And then I'm going to notice too that this point right here, this point needs to come out just a little bit, and that will widen this up some, just a little bit as well. So we're going to bring that out, so we're correcting these points. All right, so now guys, we have it at a very basic shape, and what we can do too here actually, I mean if I wanted to, I could just go 1, 2, just something up like that. Don't worry about this little piece yet necessarily, okay? Okay, so this is it, and notice I'm constantly going back and forth and cleaning up with my gummy eraser. All right, so at this stage, what I want to do if I'm a beginner, I want to keep it here for at least, I would say at least an hour or 2, and maybe give yourself a break so it rests your eyes and work these shapes until they're correct, these basic angles, without developing. You're going to feel the urge to develop and to model and to sculpt because frankly that's what all of us except for myself because I'm a genius had to do in the very beginning. We constantly want to see and put in every exact detail, thinking this is how it's going to get closer. But what we're doing, we're ignoring the big shapes. And it's a vain attempt to get the lightness of this. And at the end, it looks like an amorphous blob that doesn't make any sense. We're like, why didn't it work? Why didn't it work? And that's why we need to focus. We need to train our minds to see these big shapes. We need to slow our minds down, or rather slow ourselves down, speed up our minds, slow ourselves down so that we can give ourselves the time to focus on these angles and correct what we have freaking done. Let me correct this just a little bit. I could speed this up some, but I think there's some value in seeing what I do to correct this. So this point right here, I'm looking the overall shape, and I think this is okay, but the nose to me seems a little bit long. This piece is too long. This part definitely comes up some, especially I can see if we just go straight across. This definitely comes up just a little bit, okay, something like that. And then this is coming here. And here's another thing, when things are dark like this, it's good to, instead of erasing this first, leave it there as a reference point and then correct. But what you don't want to do is put this in too dark. Like, you know, if you're fixing this and this is dark, you put it in so dark so you can see your line that you just made. That can scar the paper and make it very hard to erase. You want to be able to erase very easily so you're not fighting your own technique. So just try to discipline yourself to still do the same darkness of line so it's not going to scar the paper. That's something very important. It's a lesson that everybody else had to learn. I came with this. I was born with this ability. Never really had to try it anything in my life. There we go. 1, 2, and then this piece right here. Actually, I might have brought it up just a smidgen too high, so I'm going to put this in. And I actually put it in very light. And now we come in and we sculpt with the eraser. And the eraser, we draw with this type of eraser right here. We're drawing with this type of eraser. Here's another thing. One of the things that I could do, which I probably should have done this last step, was kind of put this shape in, because what that's going to do is going to make the nose actually look a little bit smaller. This light area now looks a little bit smaller. Okay, so I am intentionally keeping it at this stage without trying to really develop things. I'm just trying to move the lines around just a little bit. There, 1, 2. We went over this before. Is that correct? Is this correct? So I am, even a master genius, mastermind painter, warrior mage as myself, can benefit from doing these things, because it essentially trains your mind, you know, in proportions, and it helps my painting. I can say every single time that I have done drawing in general, even barge drawings, I feel the benefit in my work in painting. I really do. I really do. All right. So I kind of broke this down here. I said I did something that I told you guys not to do, which I broke that down just a little bit more. So I'm just going to hold myself back with that, and then I'm going to just continue fixing these lines some. Let's clean it up here just a little bit. So really try to understand. I'm not as much trying to make it look pretty or this or that. That will come with time and understanding technique and such. What I am, again, doing, this angle's wrong. It needs to come up a little bit. What I am doing is trying to see that. I'm trying to see the angles, the proportions, this and that. This is a mentality that we're trying to impart. And look, if you're a beginner, do not get discouraged with this stuff. The key to being a great artist is practicing the right things and working hard at it and being patient with yourself. This is cliche stuff, but it's for a reason that I say this. When I learned to be patient with myself and my work, I started leaping ahead much more than I was before. That's when I started going forward, because I got the confidence. I had messed up enough, and I was in positions enough where I said to myself, you know, there's no way I can get this back. There's no way I can get this drawing back. There's no way I can get this back. Eventually, I started getting it back, and working past things, you know, that I didn't think I could. And so the main thing is just sticking with it and persevering through. You all right, boy? He's okay. That's the main thing. So at this point here, let's bring this out. This was way too far in, way too far in. So I'm just correcting these points right here. Correcting this. That is in the ballpark. It could come out just a little bit. When we make a correction, we come in here and we fix it. So let me, I'm going to time lapse this forward just a little bit, speed it up to the next set, and then I will put the shadow shapes in and we'll go from there. Boom! Now we have it at the finishing stage, more or less. I seriously, even at this point, even after I've been trained, could take my time. I could probably work on this another day, to be honest with you, just going and getting all the subtleties. And this is the mindset that I'm trying to impart, if you will, to you peasants out there, because the most important thing, like I stated before, is we're using this as a training ground. These particular exercises, I will admit, they are incredibly boring. I find them very boring, but they're meant to uproot our weaknesses and shove them right in our face so that we can work on them. And in doing so, if you can get a solid foundation using these barge drawings as a beginner, you're going to be better off down the road when you're trying to paint, because your drawing is going to help your painting. You're going to know where to place the brush stroke. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to work this a little bit right here. I'm going to try to make it quick, and I'm going to try to articulate what I'm doing as I always do, and I'm going to be critiquing this because this is not perfect. And so the first thing I want to impart to you is I am looking at the overall piece right now. I'm flashing my eyes, 1, 2, 1, 2, back and forth, always. And like a picture book, you'll see something move. Right, in a picture book, you have one picture and another picture, and you see it slowly move. And that's what I'm doing here. This piece right here to me seems like it's a little bit high. When I'm looking at this shape right here to this shape, it does not seem correct. This might need to drop just a hair width, coming down like this. And then I'm going to take my eraser, obviously. I'm going to make these subtle corrections. And so technique here is very important, not just for making it pretty, but for making it workable. I am using, this is bristle paper, it's very smooth. This is a 2B pencil, but you can get away with using an HB or a B. But you want the lines firm enough so you can see, but soft enough so that you can just touch them and they disappear with the eraser. And then later on down the road, you can solidify it with proper technique, just darkening and such. Here, this is too pointed. Coming down here, and we're looking at the negative shape as well. So that's a little bit too pointed. Let's see, coming up here is looking decent. There's a little bit of form there. That's good, but then this, I kind of stopped in the time lapse around here because I wanted y'all to see this detailed work that I was doing. So I really take a lot of time, and I do this in painting as well. I take the time in working my edges. So I'll draw and redraw them, and I'm doing it light and firm. Notice how I'm holding the pencil right now when I'm doing this. When you have it planted right here into your hand, you're going to have a little bit more control. It's going to be harder. When I'm drawing, especially in the beginning, and trying to make the lighter lines, I am holding it with these 3 fingers. I'm pincering it, pincer, okay? And it's not touching my hand right there, and so I'm just gliding and moving it around. Here, when I'm doing the more detailed work, I'm not like really pressing in, but I'm holding it very light. This is very important. All the stuff that I'm telling you right here plays a part in what we're doing. Technique is very important because, like I said, you want to be able to correct what you've done. You don't want to be fighting your own technique. In other words, like say, there's subtleties that need to change here, but you scarred the paper, it's too dark. And that's another thing, we need to learn this. This teaches us multiple things, not just how to draw and make it look pretty. It teaches us how to work the pencil, how to develop the drawing, right? It teaches us not to overdevelop in the beginning, otherwise you're going to have consequences. Proportions are going to be off and it's going to be much, much harder to change. This right here is a little bit too bumping up. It probably needs to shave in a little bit. I'm going to try not to make this too dark. All right, my contacts are blurring up, which is not helping at all. And this is a little bit too round, so we can always kind of go and re-block this in and to re-block parts in and to really get the form back and to get those angles. I kind of carry through and follow through and we can just cut in again with the kneaded eraser and get that piece back. And one of the things that I also saw here, this part right here is going to break higher up. And I came to that conclusion based off of looking at this light shape and then also this shape right here, which this seems, to my eye at least currently, it seems a little bit thin in here compared to this. This seems a little bit too even. It's not quite correct. So does this need to go in or does this need to go up? I think, let's see, if this is here, it kind of comes up, this comes over just a little bit, then I see this point here. That's correct. It's just, it's very subtle things that we're doing here. I'm just gonna drop this just a little bit there, just a little bit. And then I'm gonna cut in from the other side. And this is how I shaped the eraser. I pinched it and then I kind of curved it so that I can like reach over and touch the other side of the line. And sometimes you might erase the full line and what you've done. That's okay, just go back into it and redraw it. But this is, oh, and then this piece right here, so that the bulge now is up there and then it kind of falls down here. Now, I will continue doing these things. Let's put these little marks in here and there. I didn't really put these small little details in, did I? Which is okay. We can put these in at this point, but obviously this is too big. It's like less of a bump, and you can really tell with the negative shape right here that this is off. And I understand this is at the camera angle and stuff, it's just a little bit different, but for the sake of ending the video, I'm just going to show you. I just place these things in. I wait to place these in, right? Because if you place this stuff in the very beginning, obviously this line's going to change, something else is going to change, blah, 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 and then this is going to have to change. So all this, it takes time to put these marks in, time that you're wasting. That's why you put this stuff in at the very end, unless it is something that is like major that's going to help you to get an impression, right? You can make the argument with these lines right here, but I just had a straight line coming here, 1, 2, like that, and then I was measuring off them. Same here, kept this pretty simple in the block in, or the time lapse, you saw it developing. So again, I said this was a little bit pointy here. Let's take some of the point off. We're just gonna touch it just a little bit. And so what we're doing here, I'm not just, like when you first start doing this stuff, we're just trying to learn, we're trying to, in essence, copy. We're learning to see, to understand how to accurately represent and depict what we see. And that's a very hard thing. But we also, in the long game, want to understand. So if this is a live model, we want to understand, okay, the form here is, it feels like it falls down some, it comes up, and this might be a little bit too thick right here, so where is it too thick? And then you're measuring off of these big points and such, and that's how, like, we're using every tool that we have. We can use the sight size method. We're comparing points to points, large shapes to large shapes, and then we're also, and it takes an effort, we're trying to make an effort to understand freaking everything. So, my friends, I could go on, and you might be saying, this is a simple block in, or a simple bar drawing, what more is there? That's what I'm saying, is that this type of work right here, even though it's a simple block and encompasses so much of the teachings, it's the foundational teachings that I use when I'm doing the complex masterpieces that the Louvre and all these other places are begging me on a daily basis to send them these paintings because they love them so much and because I'm the best artist in the world. This is where it all starts. This bar drawing can be incredibly boring, but that, my friends, is why I am with you. So until next time, Adidas out, bitches.